Hello, hello. Welcome to the PG-ish podcast. I'm Erin with your parental guidance to help you grow yourself as a parent and raise healthy, happy, and successful humans. Hey friend, I have a couple of housekeeping items before we dive in. If you want to support PG-ish, the best way is to check out one of our sponsors. But before I tell you about them, let me recap this last week, which I bet you can relate to on some level. I had a 3-day work conference to attend, which thankfully was local, but it also meant there was a lot of back and forth to drop off and pick up kiddos, ensure they were safe to leave at home for an hour or two post-school, and mentally be on and talk to what felt like a bazillion people, which for this semi-introvert was exhausting after the first 20 minutes. Needless to say, I didn't get a lot of sleep because, even when you're at a conference, the emails never cease, and you better believe the biggest deadline of the year so far is due simultaneously. Yet I never missed a day of taking my daily gem. I started using Gem at the end of last year, and I'm obsessed with this real food multivitamin. Not only are they bite-sized, so you can skip all of the pill popping, but they're also delicious. I've been using the citrus ginger, and it has the right amount of zing, and of course, all of my daily needs to stay healthy, like vitamin D, zinc, pro and prebiotics, and B vitamins. This mighty gem kept me going in the midst of this working mom's busy schedule, and I think you'll love them too. Head to dailygem.co/PGish to get 50% off of your first order. Also, I just wanted to provide an update on my Weary to Revived course, which is live to join, but we're going to be kicking off in a couple weeks, which is a couple weeks after we thought we would. Such is life, and a very important lesson to learn. One you'll learn in this course about giving the best of you and making your yes be yes and your no be no. After the crazy week I just told you about, I want to be ready to give my best to my students. This is not the week. So be sure to sign up today and join me and other burnt out mamas on February 27th to create a blueprint to feel, heal, and redefine joy and life on your own terms. In this 5-week class, together we will do some gardening, sorting through the muck and mire of how you got to where you are today so that you can rediscover yourself and your values, make better decisions, find better ways to be productive and efficient, have more fun, and be empowered and excited to be a woman and a mom again. To learn more and to sign up, head to pgishparenting.com/events. All right, but let's get to the juicy stuff. As you'll hear author Dan Millman say, the lesson is simple, the student is complicated. 100%. I think humans like to complicate simple things. Perhaps you do it also. You may find every excuse not to do the thing you actually want to do. You may create a 20-step plan toward a goal when really it only takes 3 steps. You may procrastinate until the last minute, until the pressure is on, or criticize yourself out of something because it's not perfect enough, despite knowing perfection is a lie. But here's some advice. Just do the damn thing. Okay, I'm actually preaching to myself here because I admit I use all of these tactics. I overcomplicate likely anything and everything. Is it because I resist change or don't want to embrace the power I do have? Or is it simply because I have free will and can do whatever the hell I want? I don't know. However, I'm learning to let go of things even if my grip is still super tight. I'm learning to be brave and show up even if the words don't come out right. I'm learning to embrace the moment, even if the moment is not at all how I imagined it would go. And all I want to do is act like I'm 5 and throw a tantrum. I'm learning to ride the waves of emotion and expectations, and to embrace what I can do here and now in this moment. Greater awareness and working on myself has the potential to have a greater impact on everything else. Bottom line, I can't give that which I don't have. I'll let Dan explain the rest, though. Check him out.
You have a story as well, and it's your treasure, because no story on the planet is exactly like yours. It's not as if you just have a story, you are a story in the making. You're a novel being written, and you never know what the next chapter is going to be. So I want to acknowledge that. We've all overcome adversity and difficulties in our life. Now, I could be wrong about that. So maybe I can ask for a show of hands. Would you raise your hand, please, if you've experienced physical, emotional, or mental pain in your life? Could I see a show of hands out there? Thank you. Okay, we do have that in common. You know, I think you'd agree, though, that difficulty, that pain, that adversity you may have dealt with, because of that, you're a little bit stronger now, maybe a little bit wiser, and maybe even have a greater sense of compassion and perspective for having gone through that. So we don't have to pretend to like difficulties when they come, but we need to keep that thread of attention that there are hidden gifts depending on how we respond to it. That's what I learned. So that question of how we can develop talent for living actually led me around the world studying with various mentors over more than a decade, pretty intensively. And it led to this approach to living I call the peaceful warrior's way. That's not my way. It's not something private to me. It's not a club one needs to join. It's our way, because everyone I've seen is striving to live with a more peaceful heart. But there are also times in our lives that we need a warrior's spirit. Everyday challenges that call forth that warrior spirit inside of us. So then you might ask, well, what would be a peaceful warrior's approach to catalyzing change? Well, let's be very realistic. When things are going great in our lives, and we've all had moments, periods like that, when everything was going great, we don't want change. At those points, we want everything to stay the same, but it doesn't. And so life changes. Life is full of change. But when things aren't going well, when we have some challenges in our life coming up, then we're looking for change. Some of us, it's enough to catch a cold, and we start re-examining our life. You know what I mean? So anytime we face some adversity, some challenge, we start to reflect and look at our lives once again and wonder if we can make some changes. Now, there are two sorts of changes. There's external changes, brought about by political activism, changing our technologies, institutions, social institutions. So there's this great tradition of changing the world, improving the world around us. And it's very important. There is also a tradition of internal change, psychological, spiritual, personal growth, where people say, you know, I think the greatest difference I can make is changing myself, and then I can bring more into the world and be more useful. Now, for some people, there's a contradiction between those two sorts of change. They say, oh, I don't want to be a navel gazer and just thinking about myself, and I want to be politically active in the world. Well, I actually confronted this important question. I was walking down Telegraph Avenue in the late 60s with Socrates. The Vietnam War was raging. I was doing a lot of work on myself at the time. Self-reflection, self-observation, self-analysis. And at the same time, as we walked down Telly, I noticed a poster about starving children and oppressed peoples and anti-war activism and organizing. And I turned to Sock and I said, you know, Sock, I feel kind of guilty or selfish doing all this work on myself when there are so many people in need out there. And he didn't say anything at first. Then suddenly he turned to me and he said, take a swing at me. I said, what? Did you hear what I was just saying? He said, come on, I'll give you $5 if you can slap me on the cheek. Go ahead. Well, I figured it was some kind of test he was giving me, so I bobbed and weaved, and finally I took a swing at him. In the next moment, I found myself on the ground in a rather painful wrist lock. And as he helped me to my feet, he said, you notice a little leverage can be very effective? I said, yes, I noticed. He said, well, if you want to help people, of course, do what your heart tells you to do. But don't neglect the work on yourself, because that's what's going to give you the clarity, the courage to know how to exert the right leverage at the right place, at the right time, and really make a positive difference in the world. So it's not a question of either or, this kind of change. It's a matter of both, outward and inward. Now, even if we decide we want to work on ourselves, where do we exert the right leverage? What is that comprised of? Some people focus on fixing their insides. This is very popular in the metaphysical, spiritual traditions, in the self-help movements, how to change your thoughts, think more positively, and so on. So some work with the mind and the emotions to have just the right emotions and so on to make a change in the world. The emphasis that I bring to it can best be explained, I think, by describing two fundamental approaches to change, to doing what needs to be done. And the first approach is very popular. It sounds something like this. First, you need to quiet your mind so you can create empowering beliefs. To raise your self-esteem so you can practice positive self-talk. To find your focus and affirm your power to free your emotions and visualize positive outcomes so that you can find the courage to generate the confidence, to make the determination, to form the commitment to feel sufficiently motivated to do whatever it is you need to do. Whew. That's one approach. I recommend the other, which is just do it. Life is always going to come down to that. Whether it takes us a few minutes or a few months or years, the question always remains before us. What will you do now in response to the circumstances? Because it seems to me we have to look closely at what we have more or less control over. Can we control the thoughts that arise in our mind and change those? Let me ask you, how many of you have ever read a book about positive thinking, the power of positive psychology, positive thinking, positive mental attitude? Okay, I see quite a few hands. Now, how many of you have only had positive thoughts after reading those books for, say, the last couple of weeks? Anybody? That's interesting, isn't it? And we believe, of course, but if I'd read the book twice, if I'd highlighted it and done all the exercises, maybe I too would be having more positive thoughts. Well, maybe so. But as far as I've looked, we don't have any direct control over what thoughts arise in our awareness. We don't have a spam filter in our heads. A lot of junk mail comes through. And that's just perfectly natural. It's part of life. Sometimes my thoughts are positive, sometimes they're negative. I'm at peace with my mind now because I recognize that. I'm no longer worried about it. If you want to become obsessed about something, I'll tell you how to do it. Just try really hard not to think a given thought all day. How about our emotions? Can we control our emotions? If we could just will ourselves to feel differently from the way we feel in any given moment, then my seminars and talks would be very short. I would just say, hi, my name is Dan. I recommend you feel happy the rest of your life. Somebody came up to me after a seminar or a talk, workshop I gave and said, Dan, I don't know, I have to tell you, I feel so inspired. I said, don't worry, it will pass. Because it's true, isn't it? Inspiration comes and goes. Motivation rises and falls. The question remains, what will we do? A little of something is better than a lot of, yes. So in other words, it's fine to dream big, but start small and then connect the dots. Life can feel overwhelming when we're thinking about the past and future. You know, a writer named Barbara Rasp said, the lesson is simple, the student is complicated. By focusing less, actually, on trying to have just the right thoughts and positive thoughts and quiet mind and just the right feelings, if we focus on what we have more control over, how we move our arms and legs, what we actually do moment to moment, it simplifies our life. Do you ever wake up in the morning thinking, I have 26 things I have to do today? But actually, there's only one thing you need to do. Open your eyes when you first wake up. And then sit up. Unless you sleep sitting up. And then put your feet on the floor. One thing at a time. My life is very busy. I'm sure yours is very busy too. But my life has become very simple when I've finally realized I can only do one thing at a time. A young man, a college student actually came up to me once and said, Dan, I know you charge a lot of money for personal consultations, but I'm a poor college student. I just have $1. Can you tell me something for $1? I said, sure. And I told him 6 words that could change his life if he actually practiced it. Those 6 words were simply here and now. Breathe and relax. Just remembering to do those things more often. Remembering where we are. Where we are, right here, right now. The moment of reality. It's the only one. Mark Twain once said, I've had many troubles in my life, most of which never happened. Yeah, we laugh because there's some truth there. A light bulb goes on. Most of our troubles are self-created, about past and future, regrets, anxieties. But right now, we can handle this moment. Life comes at us in waves of change. We cannot predict or control those waves, but we can become better surfers. Learn to surf the waves of change here and now. Each moment. We can always handle this moment. And the quality of our moments become the quality of our lives.
Life sure can be overwhelming. Forcing yourself to do all the things, carrying the burdens of anxiety, decision fatigue, multitasking between different things, and not taking care of yourself because, you say you're too busy. But without adding more to your plate, where can you start? Awareness is key, as well as those baby steps. Start small, take a breath in this moment here and now, and take the next step forward. Not the one you think you should be taking in an hour, or next week, or heck, even next year. Now I know you may want to neglect yourself, but in the end, you're only hurting yourself. And spoiler alert, if you want support to assess where you are and where you're going, sign up for my Ready to Revived course. You're not alone, and as you share your stories and woes, the stronger you can become. Actually, the stronger the community can become. All right, to learn more about Dan Millman, to listen to the full talk, or to check out his book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, which I'm pretty sure I read like 20 years ago, which is a story in and of itself, but I'll save that for another time. If you want to learn all things Dan Millman, head to the show notes. If today's episode struck a chord, please send me an email at hello@pghparenting.com or a DM on Instagram. And of course, share it with a friend so that more parents can grow alongside their kiddo like you. Sending you much love. See you next time.